Shakespeare's sonnets are written predominantly in a meter called iambic pentameter, a rhyme scheme in which each sonnet line consists of 10 syllables. The syllables are divided into 5 pairs called iambs or iambic feet. An iamb is a metrical unit made up of one unstressed syllable followed by one stressed syllable. There are 14 lines in a Shakespearean sonnet. The first 12 lines are divided into 3 quatrains with 4 lines each. In the 3 quatrains, the poet establishes the theme or problem and then resolves it in the final 2 lines called the couplet. The rhyme scheme of the quatrains is AB-AB, CD-CD, EF-EF. The couplet has the rhyme scheme GG. This sonnet structure is commonly called the English sonnet or the Shakespearean sonnet. To distinguish it from the Italian Petrarchan sonnet form, which has 2 parts, a rhyming octave, ABB, AA, BBA, and the rhyming sestet, CD-CD-CD. The Petrarchan sonnet style was extremely popular with Elizabethan sonnet to his much to Shakespeare's disdain. He maxed the conventional and excessive Petrarchan style in Sonnet 130. Only 3 of Shakespeare's 154 sonnets do not conform to this structure. Sonnet 99, which has 15 lines, Sonnet 126, which has 12 lines, and Sonnet 145, which is written in iambic pentameter. The Shakespearean sonnet, the form of sonnet utilized throughout Shakespeare's sequence, is divided into 4 parts. The first 3 parts are each 4 lines long and are known as quatrains, rhymed AB-AB. The fourth part is called the couplet and is rhymed CC. The Shakespearean sonnet is often used to develop a sequence of metaphors or ideas, one in each quatrain, while the couplet offers either a summary or a new take on the preceding images or ideas. In many ways, Shakespeare's use of the sonnet form is richer and more complex than this relatively simple division into parts might imply. Not only is his sequence largely occupied with subverting the traditional themes of love sonnets, the traditional love poems in praise of beauty were, for instance, written to a man, while the love poems to a woman are almost always bitter and negatives, as Sonnet 147. It also combines formal patterns with daring and innovation. Many of his sonnets in sequence, for instance, employs the thematic pattern of a Petrarchan sonnet into the formal pattern of a Shakespearean sonnet, so that while there are still 3 quatrains in the couplet, the first 2 quatrains might ask a single question, which the third quatrain in the couplet will answer. As you read through Shakespeare's sequence, think about the way Shakespeare's themes are affected by and tailored to the sonnet form. Be especially alert to how complexities such as the juxtaposition of Petrarchan and Shakespearean patterns.
For a tap-on sonnet is Sonnet 116 by William Shakespeare. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is a never fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose words unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass calm. Love alter not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. This be error upon me proved, I'd never read, nor no man ever loved.
Sonnet 116 is one of the most famous poems in the entire sequence. The definition of love that it provides is among the most often quoted and anthologized in poetic canon. Essentially, this sonnet presents the extreme ideal of romantic love, never changes, it never fades, it outlasts death, and it needs no flaw. What is more, it insists that this ideal is the only love that can be called true. If love is mortal, changing, or impermanent, the speaker writes, then no one ever loved. The language of Sonnet 116 is not remarkable for its imagery or metaphoric range. In fact, its imagery, particularly the third quatrain, timely wielding the sickle that ravages beauty's rose lips and cheeks, is rather standard within the sonnets. In its major metaphor, love as a guiding star is hardly startling in its originality, but the language is extraordinary in that it frames its discussion of the passion of love within a very restrained, very intensely disciplined rhetorical structure, with the masterful control of rhythm and variation of tone, the heavy balance of love's not times full open the third quatrain, the declamatory "Oh no" to begin the second. The speaker makes an almost legalistic argument for the eternal passion of love. And the result is that the passion seems stronger and more urgent for the restraint in the speaker's tone.
Sonnet 116. This sonnet attempts to define love by telling both what it is and what is not. In the first quatrain, the speaker says that love, the marriage of true minds, is perfect and unchanging. It does not admit impediments, it does not change what it finds changes in the loved ones. In the second quatrain, the speaker tells what love is through a metaphor, a guiding star to lost ships, wandering barks, that is not susceptible to storms, it looks in tempest and is never shaken. In the third quatrain, the speaker again describes what love is not. It is not susceptible to time. Though beauty fades in time as rosy lips and cheeks comes within his bending sickle's compass, love does not change with hours and weeks. Instead, it bears it out even to the edge of doom. In the couplet, the speaker attests to his certainty that love is as he says. If his statements can be proved to be error, he declares he must never written a word and no man can ever have been in love. It is one of the most famous poems in the entire sequence. The definition of love that it provides is among the most often quoted and anthologized in the poetic canon. Essentially, this sonnet presents the extreme ideal of romantic love. It never changes, it never fades, it outlasts death, and admits no flaw. What is more, it insists that this ideal is the only love that can be called true. If love is mortal, changing, or impermanent, the speaker writes, then no man ever loved. The basic division of this poem's argument into the various parts of the sonnet form is extremely simple. The first quatrain says, what is love is not unchangeable. The second quatrain says, fixed guide star and unshaken by tempest. The third quatrain says, time's full, the subject change in the passage of time. In the couplet announces the speaker's certainty. What gives this poem its rhetorical and emotional power is not its complexity, rather it is the force of its linguistic and emotional conviction. The language of Sonnet 116 is not remarkable for its imagery or metaphoric range. In fact, its imagery, particularly in the third quatrain, is rather standard within the sonnets, and its major metaphoric is hardly startling in its originality. But the language is extraordinary in that it frames its discussion of the passion of love within a very restrained, very intensely disciplined rhetorical structure, with a masterful control of rhythm and variation of tone, the heavy balance of love's not times full to open the third quatrain, the declamatory "Oh no" to begin the second, the speaker makes an almost legalistic argument for the eternal passion of love, and the result is that the passion seems stronger and more urgent for the restraint in the speaker's tone.
The number 2 sonnet is entitled Sonnet 138. When my love swears that she is made of truth, I do believe her, although I know she lies, that she might think me some untutored youth, unlearned in the world's whole subtleties. thus vainly thinking that she thinks me young, although she knows my days are past the best. Simply, I credit her false speaking tongue on both sides, thus is simple truth suppressed. But wherefore says she not she is unjust? And wherefore say not I that I am old? O love's best habit is in seeming trust, and age and love loves that have years told. Therefore I lie with her, and she with me, and in her faults by lies we flattered be.
To paraphrase Sonnet 138, the line states like this: When my mistress swears that she is faithful, I do believe her, though I know she lies, so that she might think I am some inexperienced youth, ignorant of all the deceit that exists in the world, thus foolishly thinking that I am still young, although she knows that my best days are behind me. Foolishly, I give credit to the untruths she tells about me, so that both of us are suppressing the ugly truth. But why does she not tell me that she is unfaithful? And why do I not admit that I am old? All love's best disguise is the pretense of truth, and older lovers do not like to have their age pointed out. That is why I lie to her and she to me. In the lies we tell each other help us forget our respective faults.
The title shows that the sonnet will be about love and the lies hidden beneath the truth. The speaker in Sonnet 138 acknowledges that he is in a far from a perfect relationship due to the lies and deceit of which each partner is aware of. However, both continue to flatter each other. They remain together for intimacy and personal convenience due to their level of comfort while knowing the lies. In lines 1 to 4, it shows the main idea of the poem. He knows that her lover lies and that she believes him to be a fool. In lines 4 to 8, it shows his explanation to the main idea. She believes that he's young although he's not, but he goes along with what she says although it's not the truth. In lines 9 and 10, he questions how the relationship is. They know they lie to each other, but they are happy and completely fine with the relationship. The theme in Sonnet 138 is that love is not an age and love consists of lies. Age does not matter if two people are in love with each other. Therefore, age should never separate a couple from happiness. It also says here that truth can hurt, therefore it is better not to discuss it all. The speaker's tone in this sonnet is upsetting because his love is treating him as if a naive man. For example, in line 3, the speaker says that his love one thinks of him as an ignorant young man. The speaker's upset attitude towards his treatment shows he is oppressed by his love. The speaker complains his love views him as less experienced than her. However, he allows her to mistreat him. The speaker's attitude changes from upsetting and complaining to accepting because he states his love will always view him as a naive, inexperienced man. He also accepts the fact that the living with lies make the relationship keep going. Also, the central point of this sonnet is that they both lie to each other. He lies that he believes her to be a chaste maid, and she believes that she believes him to be a young man. It is a kind of mutual deception that connects them to each other. The one clever usage of language is the pun on the word lie. In line 13, the speaker says, "I lie with her and she with me." But this can be taken to mean that they both tell lies to each other and that they lie together in a physical, sexual way as lovers. They're happy together because they both accept the other as they actually are. This poem comes late in the sequence and is likely to be talking about the Dark Lady, a lover that is referenced in several of the sonnets.
Our top 3 sonnet is entitled Sonnet 106. When in the chronicles of wasted time, I see descriptions of the fairest wights, and beauty making beautiful old rhyme, in praise of ladies dead and lovely knights. Then, in the blazon of sweet beauty's best, of hand, of foot, of lip, of eye, of brow, I see their antique pen would have expressed, even such a beauty as you master now. So all their praises but are prophecies of this her time, all you prefiguring, and for they lacked but with divining eyes, they had not skill enough your worth to sing. For we, which now behold this present days, have eyes to wonder but locks tongue to praise.
Oh, her eyes make the stars look like they're not shining. Her hair falls perfectly without her trying. She's so beautiful, and I tell her every day. Yeah, when I see your face, there's not a thing that I would change, 'cause you're amazing, just the way you are. And when you smile, the whole world stops and stares for a while, 'cause girl, you're amazing, just the way you are.
In one of the critics, Sonnet 106 seems to echo number 50 in Samuel Daniel's Sonnets to Delia, published in 1594. The first 4 lines refer back to a time when the beauty of the whites Shakespeare referred to heroes recorded by poets of old, but also points out that poets of the time are still looking back, praising the beauty of those long dead. Let's other scenes of knights and paladins in age accents and untimely words paint shadows and imaginary lies which well the worth of their high wits records. The theme, however, has more in common with that of Shakespeare's Sonnet 17 and others that speak of the poet's hope for the future. In this sonnet, the poet put himself down, belittling his efforts to adequately praise the fair lord's beauty. This is a common theme throughout the sonnets, although it is ironic since the sonnets themselves prove that the poet is in fact aptly representing his subject. The final couplets contrast the speakers with the writers of the chronicle, pointing out that although he has an advantage over them by having the fair lord to look upon, rather than to just imagine as he might be in the future, still he and rival poets lack tongues to praise. The phrase chronicle of wasted time hearkens to the theme of time as a destroyer, which wastes or lays waste to the beautiful whites in their nations. This iteration of wasted time does not have the modern day meaning of days spent in laziness, but rather is linked to its Latin derivative vasture, meaning destruction in warfare. The chronicle itself was a written historical record, often compiled by a monk. In writing his historical plays, Shakespeare is known to have relied on Holinshed's Chronicle History of England, which was published in 1577. A Christian undertone runs through this sonnet, likening the fair Lord to Jesus Christ and perhaps his beauty to Christ's message. The bards of long ago were like prophets writing about a beauty that was to come, but which they could not see yet, other than how it was reflected in the most beautiful men and women of their time. Line 9 states that all their praises are but prophecies of the fair Lord who would come in the future. The word prophecies, in addition to the term divining in line 11, support the religious connection. Divining means seeing into the future, as fortune tellers, and of course carries the connotation of something divine from heaven. Sonnet 106 is another poem addressed to the fair youth, whose beauty Shakespeare praises. To paraphrase the meaning of Sonnet 106, when I read descriptions of beautiful people in old books, people whose beauty inspired old poems, praising women who are now dead and handsome knights, I see in such descriptions of these paragons of beauty that the authors would have gladly described your beauty. So all of their praise of others is merely a foreshadowing of your beauty in the present time. Yet, although they had the wit to predict your arrival, they did not have the skill to describe you. For even we poets who live now at the same time as you can admire your beauty, but we don't have the skill to put such beauty into adequate words. A straightforward poem, this in terms of its meaning, the effects Shakespeare generates are worthy of analysis, though white is an odd choice of word perhaps to describe people, but since white is an archaic term for person, it is appropriate, given that Shakespeare is talking about having his nose in old books of poems at this point. It's also fitting that the bard mentions both ladies and knights, again calling up a bygone of medieval age of chivalry, since the fair youth of Sonnet 20 had shown most clearly, possessed an androgynous beauty, being delicate but also manly, with masculine as well as feminine qualities. White is similarly an upward then in this context, since it's a gender-neutral word. This poem follows Hat on the heels of Sonnet 105, in which Shakespeare had offered the blasphemous view that the fair youth was like God. In this sonnet, Shakespeare continues this blasphemous line of praise by casting the fair youth as a Christ-like figure, with these previous paragons of beauty being John the Baptist, who prefiguring the coming of the Savior. Shakespeare's point in the concluding couplet is that even though he and his contemporaries are fortunate enough to live at the same time as the fair youth, rather than the poets of old who could merely look forward to the arrival of such a beautiful human, they still can't find the words to do such beauty justice. Even though they are able to behold his beauty with their own eyes, why wasted time? In that opening, reference to the chronicle of wasted time, wasted here should be interpreted as meaning consumed or spent. Essentially, time that has passed. Ablazoned, by the way, is a list of admirable qualities from the heraldic term meaning shield. For a coat of arms,